fan of texture, so I've been doing some little plasticine studies of what visual elements put a certain feel in our minds. In particular, I'm interested in the mesmerizing qualities of the knit stitches' soft rise and falls. As someone who works primarily in textiles, it's fun to take a pattern I'm familiar with and create a lie about its haptic identity. When you look at this pattern, what do you think of? Do you think about the hands that made it, each motion that lovingly created one little V over and over in ritual, resulting in a soft, warm fabric? Knitting as an act has many societal connotations. As my practice centers around it, I want to explore working with and against these. I love creating three-dimensional art. It's been what I found to be the best forum for my ideas. However, sketching is still a crucial step. Here I show some figure drawings that may not seem directly related to my work, but doing them allows me to practice thinking creatively about form and art as a holistic endeavour. They're done in a sketchbook I made from a variety of papers. Research for my practice has included looking at an article titled Haptics in Education, Exploring an Untapped Sensory Modality by James Minogue and M. Gale Jones. It outlines studies of how touch, or the haptic, can relate to mental processes. I've been referring back to this when considering how my work may be interacted with and perceived. I have a little bit of experience weaving, but I figured it couldn't hurt to try attempting something more abstract. I think this looks fun. As an object, it's dysfunctional, but there's something freeing in that, a sort of allowance to take manual labour with feminine connotations and make it imperfect, removing it from the historically practical context for my own enjoyment. Touch comfort in humans is a topic my practice is interested in. Studies, most famously Harlow's monkeys, show that comfort is developmentally almost as important as food to our psychological well-being. When we grow up, there is a social notion that we should deny ourselves small pleasures like soft toys. I question this notion in my work. As I have stated, I'm interested in topics such as the haptic experience, but I'm also interested in how textile art relates to feminism. Some easy evidence of gender stereotyping in regards to knitting is the image results when you search it on Google. We can see that basically every person is feminine presenting. I want to look at historically why this is. An overlapping area of wearable art, historical gender contexts, and properties of material that I've been thinking about is armour. It's an extremely solid, metal, protective item of clothing that historically has almost no connection to women. I want to think about changing the narrative by moulding armour into something that can be soft and protective in ways other than just physical via knitting. When I think of historical women in armour, I think of Joan of Arc. Unofficial patron saint of the suffragette movement, she's an icon of what it means to deny gender expectations. The project is somewhat inspired by her actions. Armour has also generally been made by male blacksmiths. I'm looking at this craft through a contemporary feminist lens. For knitting the suits of armour myself, I need to study the form of it. Knitting patterns for complex shapes is not something that I can create with ease at my current skill level. I want to think about what type of armour I should base my design off, and I ended up going with plate armour. I would have liked to pick a more complex design, but for a first attempt knitting one, this is more realistically obtainable. The base is a pretty standard balaclava shape. When deciding what material to make this out of, I wanted to be deliberate. This is 100% sheep wool that I had left over from another project. The textile industry produces a lot of waste, and the most sustainable course of action is to use what you already have. So if I can, I will try not to use any new materials. One method I've developed and found has worked relatively well is making paper mock-ups of the shapes that I need. I can knit them flat to this guideline. Getting a visor and the shape on top of the head right was a real struggle that took a lot of trial and error. Hopefully what I've learned will help with the rest of the armour design. I'm really happy with how this looks visually. It's obvious what it is, and any worries that I had about the knit looking confusing were quelled. I've received feedback that it's interpreted how I hoped. One thing that I do now need to think about is how it would function in a gallery setting, or if that's even where it works best. It being touchable is a crucial element. I'm excited to move on to the next part of the armour. I feel that it's necessary to do a full set to convey my idea. I would like to be able to wear it in a variety of spaces to see how it functions there, thinking about it more performatively and photographing it. I feel that the helmet was a good place to start as it's distinctive on its own in ways that a chest plate might not be. These are some sketches that I've been doing to plan my next action. Lisa Ann Auerbach is a textile artist that makes knitted sweaters that convey political opinions. The idea being that they are worn as a way to express yourself openly in a public space. The wearability aspect of her work functions expertly. As I'm moving towards making wearable art, She's a model of the ways my practice could be displayed outside of a white cube style gallery. Her practice is also concerned with feminism, but not quite in the same ways as mine. I think it's important to look at artists whose work is functioning in the same context but taking a different angle to keep myself questioning what I'm doing and why. She utilizes the definition of a sweater and uses it as a weapon. I'm taking a defensive mechanism and turning it into something more sweater-like. This is Magdalena Abakanowicz's Abakan Red. Her artwork and writing set the scene for developing haptic art practices. The space Abakan Red takes up and how it's interacted with in a room is extremely impactful. Due to its ambiguous shape, it allows individual experiences. She also expertly utilizes the identity of materials to form an impression. As an opposite to my soft armor project, I wanted to make a solid jumper. I did some tests to see what would work best, for example, PVA glue, resin, a combination of both, and found that I was going to need to use a pretty large amount of resin. It was a pain to make as I had to build support structures and make it in parts. I don't think that this is great visually, and it's impossible to wear the arm part. I think it could look okay with some work, but as an item of wearable art, it doesn't work. It's also pretty sharp in places. The idea of an almost hostile jumper, though, is fun and works in opposition to my soft armor. I've learned a lot from this. Armor is probably the least domestic type of clothing to exist. It's clunky, you can't really do much in it other than fight. When thinking about the gender narrative around crafts such as knitting, cooking, blacksmithing, and sewing, it's interesting to think about how it changed socially over the years, and the divide between men and women's link to domestic versus professional worth.